John Denver was more than just a singer-songwriter. He was a cultural icon whose music defined a generation. With hits like Take Me Home, Country Roads, Annie's Song, and Rocky Mountain High, he captured hearts and brought the beauty of nature into the lives of millions. But behind the melodies and the sunshine persona, a tragedy was waiting, one that would shock the world and leave fans searching for answers. On October 12, 1997, John Denver died when his small aircraft, an experimental Rutan Long-EZ, crashed off the coast of California. The official reports initially labeled the incident as a pilot error tragedy, a sudden, inexplicable accident that took the beloved singer from us far too soon. But for years, questions lingered. How could a skilled pilot like John Denver make such a fatal mistake? Why did the crash occur in such seemingly simple conditions? And what really happened in those final moments before the plane went down? For decades, speculation surrounded the incident. Some suggested mechanical failure. Others pointed to pilot error or the possibility of fatigue. Books, documentaries, and interviews examined every angle, yet the full story remained elusive. Fans, friends, and aviation experts alike were left piecing together fragments, hoping to understand the reality behind the tragic headlines. Now, after more than 25 years, new revelations have surfaced that finally shed light on the mystery of John Denver's death. Investigators, aviation experts, and insiders have revisited the case, uncovering details that were previously overlooked or misunderstood. And the truth, they say, is far more troubling than anyone imagined. The mystery isn't just about a plane crash. It's about human error, oversight, and circumstances that combine to create a tragedy that could have been prevented. What you're about to discover changes everything we thought we knew about John Denver's final flight, and it isn't good. John Denver's rise to fame was meteoric, defined by a voice that carried both warmth and sincerity, and lyrics that resonated deeply with a generation. Born Henry John Deutschendorf Jr. in 1943, he found his calling early, combining musical talent with an unmistakable charisma that drew fans instantly. By the 1970s, Denver was not just a musician. He was a symbol of American optimism, nature appreciation, and heartfelt storytelling. His songs painted vivid pictures of mountains, rivers, and the human spirit, earning him a devoted following and critical acclaim alike. But behind the music and the smiling public persona, John Denver was a man who carried pressures few outsiders could comprehend. He was a perfectionist, deeply committed to both his musical craft and his passions, including environmental activism and aviation. Flying in particular was more than a hobby. It was a personal passion that provided both escape and exhilaration. Denver was known to spend countless hours learning about aircraft, piloting techniques, and the mechanics of flying, often emphasizing safety and preparation. On October 12, 1997, however, the passion that brought him joy would become the setting of a tragedy that stunned the world. Denver was piloting his personal Rutan Long-EZ, an experimental aircraft near Pacific Grove, California. What was initially reported as a straightforward crash eventually became the subject of intense scrutiny and speculation. For decades, the official cause centered on pilot error, citing Denver's inability to switch fuel tanks during the flight, leading to fuel starvation. Yet the narrative always felt incomplete, leaving aviation experts and fans alike questioning how such a seasoned pilot could make a fatal error. Adding to the mystery were the circumstances surrounding the aircraft itself. The Rutan Long-EZ is known for its unique design, with controls and fuel systems that differ from conventional planes. While Denver had experience with smaller aircraft, the plane's unconventional layout may have contributed to confusion in a critical moment. Friends and colleagues reported that Denver was meticulous about safety checks and pre-flight procedures, which raised more questions about how such a seemingly avoidable mishap could occur. Investigators also had to contend with environmental factors, mechanical considerations, and human psychology under stress. The flight was taking place in conditions that were generally favorable, yet the crash still occurred in a way that puzzled authorities. For years, aviation specialists revisited Denver's flight logs, training history, and the specifics of the aircraft's design to piece together the sequence of events. Every detail mattered. From fuel gauge placement to the cockpit layout, to understand how tragedy struck someone so experienced and prepared. While the world mourned, many hoped that the investigation would clarify the circumstances, but initial reports left lingering doubts. Friends, family, and fans struggled to reconcile the image of the careful, experienced pilot with the sudden, fatal accident. Over time, the story took on a sense of mystery, with rumors of mechanical faults, design flaws, or even overlooked safety protocols. The more people examined the crash, the more layers of complexity appeared, leaving the question, what truly caused John Denver's death? As we delve deeper into the investigation, it becomes clear that the crash was not merely an accident. Human factors, aircraft design, and perhaps overlooked procedural nuances all played a role, creating a scenario that would tragically end the life of one of America's most beloved musicians. Following the initial reports of John Denver's fatal crash, investigators focused on piecing together both the human and mechanical elements of the accident. While Denver was an experienced pilot with thousands of hours of flight time, the Rutan Long EZ he was flying was not a conventional aircraft. Its unique design, a canard configuration with tandem seating and non-standard fuel controls, required careful attention, particularly in stressful or emergency situations. Aviation experts later noted that even small mistakes could have catastrophic consequences in such an aircraft, even for skilled pilots. According to the final National Transportation Safety Board (NTSB) report, the primary cause of the crash was fuel starvation. Denver had failed to switch fuel tanks mid-flight, causing the engine to lose power and the plane to plunge into the Pacific Ocean. Yet the report also hinted at contributing factors beyond simple pilot error. For instance, the cockpit was cramped and required awkward movements to access the fuel selector. In high-stress moments, such as handling turbulence or balancing weight in the aircraft, reaching the controls could be unexpectedly difficult, and that may have been a critical factor in Denver's inability to switch tanks in time. Witnesses on the ground and boaters nearby reported seeing the plane flying unusually low before the crash, possibly indicating that Denver was attempting to troubleshoot the problem or prepare for an emergency landing. While Denver had always been careful and methodical, experts speculated that fatigue, distraction, or the urgency of the situation may have contributed to a fatal miscalculation. Even someone with Denver's experience could have been overwhelmed by the combination of unusual aircraft design, environmental factors, and human reaction under pressure. Mechanical conditions were also scrutinized. Investigators examined the fuel system for defects, finding no evidence of malfunction. The plane's design, however, placed significant responsibility on the pilot to manage fuel carefully. In retrospect, the Rutan Long EZ demanded more vigilance than typical small aircraft. This interplay between human judgment and mechanical responsibility became a central focus in understanding how such a skilled pilot could succumb to a seemingly preventable error. A layer of complexity arose from Denver's dual role as both pilot and passenger. Unlike conventional aircraft, the tandem seating required him to multitask under challenging conditions. This meant managing navigation, fuel selection, and aircraft handling simultaneously, a scenario that can quickly overwhelm even seasoned aviators when unexpected difficulties arise. Experts suggest that the combination of physical strain, stress, in the unusual configuration likely contributed to the tragic outcome. Ultimately, while the official cause was labeled as pilot error, a deeper investigation reveals that Denver's death was a convergence of factors. The unconventional design of the Rutan Long EZ, the high-pressure decision-making required in flight, and human limitations under stress. The narrative of simple mistake overlooks the broader context of aviation risk, especially for experimental aircraft. It also underscores the tragic irony. John Denver, a man who spent his life soaring through the skies metaphorically and literally, fell victim to the very passion he loved most. As investigators and aviation experts delved further into the circumstances of John Denver's fatal crash, more details emerged that painted a complex picture of both human and technical factors. While pilot error remained the official cause, experts emphasized that the unique characteristics of the Rutan-Long EZ played a significant role in creating a scenario where even a skilled pilot could falter. One of the main challenges was the aircraft's fuel system and cockpit design. Unlike conventional planes, the Rutan-Long EZ required the pilot to reach across the cockpit to access fuel tank controls, a process that demanded precision, especially in moments of stress or distraction. Denver, accustomed to more traditional aircraft, may have underestimated how challenging it would be to manage these controls under pressure. Witness accounts and later analysis suggest that the complexity of this system, combined with the plane's unconventional layout, contributed significantly to the accident. Environmental factors also played a subtle but important role. The Pacific conditions that day were mostly clear, but flying over water always carries inherent risk, especially for smaller aircraft. Any unexpected turbulence or miscalculation could have severe consequences. Additionally, Denver's focus on the task of switching fuel tanks and managing the aircraft may have inadvertently diverted his attention from subtle indicators that something was going wrong, a common factor in accidents involving experimental planes. Human factors, however, were at the core. Even the most experienced pilots can experience momentary lapses, particularly when faced with an unfamiliar aircraft or high-pressure situation. Experts emphasize that stress, fatigue, or even a momentary distraction can drastically reduce reaction time, leading to outcomes that might seem inexplicable to outsiders. In Denver's case, a combination of mechanical demands and human limitations tragically intersected. The investigation also highlighted the absence of a co-pilot or safety oversight. In experimental aircraft, having a second set of eyes or hands can make the difference between recovering from an error and a fatal accident. Denver, as the sole pilot, bore full responsibility in an aircraft that required constant vigilance. In hindsight, even a minor misstep in fuel management proved irreversible, resulting in the catastrophic loss of engine power over the Pacific. Friends and colleagues later reflected on Denver's meticulous nature as a pilot and his genuine passion for flying. He loved aviation, often speaking about the freedom and clarity it gave him. But passion alone could not overcome the technical challenges and human vulnerabilities present that day. His death was a sobering reminder of how unpredictable experimental aircraft can be, even in the hands of someone careful and experienced. Ultimately, Part 3 emphasizes that John Denver's final flight was not merely a result of negligence or a simple mistake. It was a convergence of aircraft design, environmental conditions, and human limitation. A scenario that turned one of his greatest passions into a tragic accident. The layers of complexity in this case serve as both a cautionary tale for aviation enthusiasts and a heartbreaking reminder of how fragile life can be, even for those who seemed closest to the skies themselves. The final chapter of John Denver's tragic story brings clarity to a mystery that haunted fans for more than 2 decades. While early reports labeled his death as a simple accident, the deeper investigation reveals a far more nuanced reality, one that involves the interplay of human limitation, aircraft design, and the inherent risks of experimental aviation. Denver's love for flying was well known. Friends and colleagues often spoke of his passion for the skies, describing him as meticulous, attentive, and cautious. He poured hours into learning about aircraft, navigation, and safety procedures. Yet, even the most careful pilot can be vulnerable when faced with unconventional machinery. The Rutan-Long EZ, while innovative, presented unique challenges. Its canard design, tandem seating, and unconventional fuel system demanded constant attention and precise control. Under pressure, these factors could overwhelm even an experienced aviator. And on that fateful day, they did. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, concluded that fuel starvation caused the engine to fail, leading to Denver's crash into the Pacific Ocean. However, subsequent analysis highlights the contributing factors often overlooked in public discussions. The physical difficulty of reaching fuel controls in a small cockpit, the cognitive load of managing an unfamiliar experimental plane, and the psychological stress inherent in emergency situations. All of these combine to create a moment where even a momentary lapse could become fatal. Environmental conditions, though largely favorable, also played a role. Flying over water requires heightened vigilance because emergency landing options are limited. Minor turbulence, a misjudgment in handling the aircraft, or a brief distraction could escalate quickly into disaster. In Denver's case, experts believe he likely attempted to troubleshoot the fuel problem while keeping the plane airborne. But the combination of human limitation and technical challenge proved insurmountable. Another sobering detail involves the absence of external oversight or co-pilot support. Many experimental aircraft accidents occur when the pilot is alone, responsible for every control and decision. A co-pilot or additional monitoring system could have prevented the miscalculation, potentially saving Denver's life. Unfortunately, on that day he bore full responsibility, and a single critical error became fatal. John Denver's death serves as both a personal and public cautionary tale. It is a reminder of the limits of human ability, the risks inherent in experimental aviation, and the tragic consequences that can arise when passion intersects with complexity and oversight gaps. His music continues to inspire millions, yet the details of his final flight underscore the fragility of life, even for someone who seemed closest to the skies themselves. In retrospect, the John Denver mystery isn't about negligence or recklessness. It's about a perfect storm of circumstances, design challenges, and human limitation. It is a story that combines brilliance and tragedy, passion and risk, and serves as a lasting testament to the man who lived fully, loved the skies, and left behind a legacy that continues to resonate long after his passing. His life and death remind us that even icons are vulnerable, and that sometimes the passions that bring the most joy can also carry hidden dangers. A truth finally revealed after decades of speculation.